Hello, hello, hello.
Good evening.
How is everyone doing?
Evening, Racha.
Hi. Guys,
Hi.
please introduce yourselves on the chat box. Say hello to one another. Get to know each other. We're just going to let a couple more people in.
I think we know each other.
Okay, that's great. But then that's also a problem. If we know everyone in the room, that means we need to be inviting more people, Unity.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll just keep letting people in as they come through. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another mentoring session with Women in Mining SA in partnership with 𝗪𝗠 Coaching and Consulting. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It is always such a pleasure to be with you guys on a Tuesday evening. And as always, we've got another incredibly insightful conversation, which I think so many of us are going to resonate with, because it's probably one of the, I guess, the biggest stresses we experience, and one of the things that we all probably struggle to navigate with on a daily basis. And this is basically talking about some of the ins and outs around how we navigate around workplace politics and how we deliver without, what was the very pretty title that you had created, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪?
Delivering without derailing.
Without derailing. And I guess the derailing is the part that we all need some guidance with tonight. So I am just a co-host tonight. This is 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪's show. So I'm going to hand over to 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪, who is one of our mentors in our mentoring program. And she is going to take us through tonight's discussion. As always, guys, please feel free to ask questions, to engage. Drop your questions in the chat box. Raise a hand if you have something to share. We'd love to hear from all of you. So let's kick it off, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪.
Good evening, everyone. Oh my God, I see my colleagues here. I see my friends here. We really, really appreciate having you here. I see my mentors as well. Hi, mentees. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. So we are discussing delivering without derailing. And throughout the month in our group, we are going through throughout the months of the year. The whole topic is your career value chain, managing your career like a business. So when we talk about delivering in this context, we are talking about delivering yourself without derailing you as a business, your career, to your clients, out there into the world to make a success of yourself. So I'm not alone today. I've got a few panelists with me who have given me the privilege of joining us and imparting a lot of their knowledge and sharing their life journeys with us. Two of them are running late. We've got two ladies here, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪 and 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪 are here with us. And they are going to just give us a brief welcoming and tell us a bit about themselves. 𝗪𝗠𝗪𝗠𝗪 and 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪�ึ we will, amongst the topics we're going to be discussing today is workplace politics, and we've got a poll that is going up right now. And I'm hoping the ladies are going to assist us in discussing this, what it is, how to navigate it, and how to make it work for us. 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, would you like to join us, please?
Good evening, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙. Wonderful to spend time with my 𝗪𝗠𝗪 family, and I look forward to the conversation. So my name is 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 I'm a miner by heart and a mining engineer by profession. Thanks.
Thank you so much. 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙.
Good evening, everyone. It would be nice to see everyone's faces, though. 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 I am a geologist by profession. However, I've spent some time in the mine in multiple roles, in mine planning, in production logistics, in plant processing, and I'm currently working as a business improvement superintendent here in the Kalahari in the Northern Cape. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks, 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧, back to you.
Thank you so much. I think maybe to kick us off, would you ladies like to tell us a bit about where you guys started off and how you guys relate to this topic of career derailers? I know 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 had very lovely stories to share, and she just resonated so much with this topic, and that was like how I knew I had the right person for this. Can you tell us a bit more, 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧?
Sure. So my career started, like I mentioned, I am a geologist. And when I started my career, we actually started as quite a big group of graduates. We were about 20 or more. I can't really recall the number, but we were quite a big group of graduates when we started. And I think one of the biggest, my first introductions or biggest introductions to workplace politics was a conversation that I had with my supervisor at the time when I was still a graduate, where he made me aware that the people I was surrounding myself with, which was a group of fellow geologists and also graduates as well, might not really be helping my career progression and my opportunities, just because of how they were perceived and how they showed up in the operation. And that's really when I started to become aware of really who I'm surrounding myself with in the workplace, and also how to navigate the perceptions that sometimes come up when you deal with different people and when you get a chance to, to act in certain positions and get promotions. So that's really what I would like to start sharing first. I'll also share a bit when we get into the conversation, my experience about the importance of emotional intelligence. For me, it started a bit painfully. I lost my sister in 2021, and that was almost a trigger to how I showed up and the behaviors I portrayed in the workplace, and really how I had to relook at myself and make different decisions, particularly with such a big thing as a trigger. Would you like me to share more, or is that sufficient? And then we'll get into the conversation. I'll elaborate more.
I think let's give 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 a chance to introduce herself, to share more about her experience and how she relates to the topic, and then we'll get to the nitty-gritties of this whole thing. Hi, 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧.
Thank you, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks. So the topic is quite broad and quite complex. So, when I think first encountered organizational politics, I probably didn't even know what it was called. Fresh from class, I arrived at a mine, and the first person I'm told to work with tells me that he doesn't work with women. He's a 𝗪𝗪𝗪 man, and women belong in the kitchen. And at the time, I just felt, I've got two choices: to either, rebel against that in an aggressive manner, or give up and actually believe what he told me at the time. But in hindsight, I realized that if you stop at the first hurdle or at the first no, in terms of how people are organized in an organization and the politics around who works with who, in what role, and how their relationships develop, you are probably going to then feel, those are some of the derailers that you will experience if the first no is reason enough for you to stop at pursuing what you want and what's important to you. So for me, politics affects us whether we want to participate in or not. And it's really up to you as an individual to understand what that's meant to do for you and use that as an opportunity to still pursue your purpose or what you are there for, and not just allow that pain of having to go through these very uncomfortable conversations and situations derail you from what you want. So I remember it was on a drag line. I started my career in the coal fields, and a drag line is a big machine, and lucky for me, it had a kitchen. And I realized, okay, not all is lost. So I actually asked him, what do women do in the kitchen? And he said they do what's done in the kitchen, cook, but not work in the mines. And I said, okay, we can have a deal. I'll make you coffee in the kitchen on the drag line. And because I'm a student and I need to do this and that project, and you as an expert in your field need to obviously take me through what you do and stuff like that. In the mornings, I made him coffee, and that earned me a spot in the drag line. And, would spend the whole day then working. And I managed to finish my project at the time. And when I think about it now, in hindsight, and this is quite a number of years ago, I realized that had I taken it as the first no and decided that as a result I would not continue, I wouldn't have gone far. So politics at times are just there to make us think differently and not to stop at the first hurdle.
𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗧, if I can interject there, so if we take this back to the poll we just had, right? So we had like 10 people saying that they have an understanding of what this is. 12 people said they avoid it. And then there were 3 people who were like, what does this even mean, right? And I think maybe sometimes the word itself becomes very, I don't know, toxic, taboo, whatever it might be. So how would you ladies probably start by defining what politics means in this essence in the workplace? Because I think maybe it's the definition as well that we probably all need to understand a little better.
Yeah, so I think the world of work in itself is organized in a very political manner, especially our mining industry. It's very built on hierarchy and rank, and a lot of people are organized based on preferences, based on race, gender, age, different traits that can be used to differentiate people. And that's where politics usually read. So if you think of maybe Black women preferring to work with fellow Black women, or Black men preferring to work with Black men, white men similarly doing the same. That's where politics start, because we create a culture where certain groups of people work with only certain groups of other people, and cliques happen. And then people start having preferences, decisions are made at other people's disadvantage based on those cliques or cultural norms that are normalized based on ranking or anything that people may use to differentiate. And that's where usually politics breed, to start saying people like these behave in that manner, or profiling people with or without facts. And that's where politics usually starts.
𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗧, do you have anything different to add from a definition perspective, or did you experience it the same?
Yeah, I would also like to add it. And also workplace politics also involves a lot of employing a lot of influence tactics or influential tactics, normally to achieve a certain objective, whether you use them or others use them to achieve a certain objective or a certain goal, or even for their own personal benefit. So people would almost make use of politics to really achieve what they want to achieve, or use it to drive them or drive their ambitions and desires. But also really to influence others as well, to almost follow suit to what they see as the right way to do things.
Wow, what a mouthful. Thank you so much, ladies. The other 2 panelists are here. I'd like to welcome Ziningi Shezi. She's the lady in the pink hat. Welcome, Ziningi. And I know that you've heard a bit of what's going on. Before I ask you to jump right in, could you please just tell us a bit about yourself and how you relate to the topic, and then we'll take it from there. We've also got Joe. He's just joined us, the gentleman in the glasses. welcome to you as well, Joe. We have started without you, but you did mention that you'd be running just a teeny weeny bit late. So we really appreciate you joining us. We have jumped right in and we are currently discussing organizational politics. What are they and how do they affect us? So Zine is just going to introduce herself, and then you can also please just tell us a bit about yourself after. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, all right. Thank you for the invite. I think it's a wonderful topic that we're discussing today. And apologies for just joining late. I had a bit of technical challenges. So my name is 𝗪𝗍𝗍. I am the Human Resources Manager at 𝗪𝗠𝗍𝗲. How do I relate to the topic? I think, you know, I deal with politics almost every day. And politics for me, what is important is that it is normal. And as soon as you understand that it is normal, then you don't battle in terms of how therefore do I manage politics, because you'll always have people who've got, you know, who are easy to interact with and people that are not easy to interact with. You've got people who've got their own preferences and they've got their own way of doing things. And in a way, it's about managing the relationship that you have with the people that you work with. It's also about, you know, work politics is about influence. It's about influencing the people that you work with, and how therefore do you influence the people that you work with. It's also about the power dynamics that is at play. Every day at work, there's always power dynamics. And for you to be able to achieve your own goals in life in terms of your KPI and also in terms of your growth as an individual, you need to be able to maneuver and be able to manage the politics and be able to know the people that you work with, either people you work with in your own environment or even outside. You know, sometimes when you talk about managing work politics, you are thinking it's just only in the workplace, but it's also outside the workplace, you know, having informal relationships outside the workplace that will also help you inside the workplace. So how I relate to politics, I mean, I remember as a student, starting as a learner in the 90s, and, you know, I have no understanding of what politics is and what is it all about. I'm just there, I'm a learner, I'm a student, and I'm here to show that I'm able to do the work. And I got an opportunity, I will say it's an opportunity, but at that time, I was a learner. I got an opportunity to go and act for a PA, and that is the PA of the HR manager. And how I got there is because they said, oh no, she's fast, she's a quick learner, she'll be able to do the work, let her come in and assist us. And I went there and I did assist because, you know, I'm focused and all that. But obviously in that office, there are certain confidential information that you're privy to. And at that time, you know, being new in the industry, we were a few learners, and one of our learners, I realized that has been appointed without completing the project itself or the learnership program that we were part of. Being naive and being brave, because sometimes, you know, you are brave as a person. So I can say I was brave, yet I was naive, because as soon as I realized that, you know, someone is appointed and I am not appointed, and I think I'm a good person, I think, you know, I can do the work, and I think I'm the best thing ever that has happened for this company. I went to the HR manager, and lo and behold, I just approached him and I said, but I don't understand, you know, why are other people appointed and others are not appointed? that yet being a brave thing to do, but politically is not. It's not a good thing to do politically, because now you come across as being a complainer, a moaner, a difficult person to handle and to deal with. So that was my first, if I have to look back, my first experience in terms of managing politics, because I could have dealt with that differently. Now, how I would have dealt with it will be just to say, okay, I need to pick my battles, because managing politics also is about picking your battles. Do I need to fight this? Do I just need to let go? Or do I need to look at myself and say, what is it that I can do better so that next time, I am the one that is a preferred candidate?
Zinindi, do you think that like ignorance is bliss sometimes in these situations? I think Shanae made a comment here where she says somebody told her something powerful, that you don't get involved in it, but you need to be aware of it. Because I think sometimes there's a lot of us who probably go through life unaware that we're even in a situation. And from an HR perspective, what would your thoughts be on that?
Here's the thing. Yes, if I have to look at my case, yes, I was unaware that I'm in a situation. I only realized later that now as an adult and I've matured that, actually I was in a situation and I should have managed it, or I could have managed it differently if I was aware politically and matured. But the consequences of that, whether aware or not aware, are still the same. So as much as we would like to believe that because I was ignorant, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to bear the consequences of that. Ultimately, you'll bear the consequences. That's why it's also important for us to have these discussions, so that we enlighten each other, because sometimes you might think that, I'm the only one that is going through this and I don't understand it. But someone comes and say, no, be careful. That is just politics at play. And this is what you need to do. But in terms of the consequences, for me, the consequences will be the same, because the people that are involved are better equipped than you at that time and at that moment.
I think you're on mute, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪. We can't hear you.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Ziningi. I'd like to bring in Joe. Joe, welcome. Just tell us a bit about yourself, please, and how you relate to the topic at hand today.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. All right. So 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪 introduced me. My name is Joe Shupi. I'm most involved in the project management space. I'm the founder of 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪, which is an organization that deals with technical services, also deals with specializes in project management. I've worked for several companies. I've worked for Anglo American. I've worked for Khumani. I've worked for Transnet. So I've quite a bit of experience within organizations. Coming to politics. Politics is not something new. It's something that we experience at all, something that we see in our country. And an organization is made out of people from different environments, with different values, with different interests. So definitely you're going to have competition, and basically competition leads to this workplace politics. So just to give a short story, so workplace politics can be bad, can be also good, depending how you perceive it. For instance, workplace politics will be good if you use the workplace politics to understand which people are influential in the organization, so that you can align yourself, so that you can grow within the organization, so you can understand also who can mentor you. Because mentors, you need people who are influential, who can open doors for you. And that's where workplace politics is good. But workplace politics can also be bad in the sense where people start using information against you. For instance, not sharing information with you. For instance, if you make a mistake, they will exaggerate it. And if you've done good work, you won't get the recognition. Recognition might be taken away from you, given to someone else. And that's where it becomes bad, where it's not fair. But we cannot stay away from workplace politics. So I think where workplace politics become bad, especially within our space in the project management, contracting environment, is where workplace politics starts playing a role. And when you hear people say, you start stepping on people's toes, in the sense that you start stepping on people's toes with coming to work contracts. Certain people within an organization might be aligned with a certain company and doing work for a certain company. And that work politics environment, that's where you need to understand how to maneuver around it and to make sure the way that you're stepping on other people's toes doesn't get you into trouble. So from a work experience, sometimes we ethical beings, we want to do things correctly, but at the same time, you'll find yourself in hot water. For instance, in my example, there was an organization that was doing work with one of my organizations. The quality of work wasn't that good. The quality of work was bad. With issues with the quality of work with this organization, the supplier, and me expecting excellent work from a supplier, and we having issues with construction work on site. I had to step in, and what I did was to demand this organization to pay damages that the organization has experienced. Doing all of this out of a good will, trying to save the organizational cost, but at the end of the day, not knowing this workplace politics involves with the supplier within higher management ranks. So in that situation, you find yourself in hot water, and you need to understand when to step in and when to step back. Some of these moves can shorten your career lifespan. So as an individual, as a person, you need to understand where the politics are playing, at which level, and what you need to do. I saw a statement in the group saying that you need to be aware of workplace politics, but don't get involved. Yes, at the lower level of an organization, it's easy not to get involved. But the moment you start moving up in an organization and getting involved, you will definitely get pulled into workplace politics, but you need to know how to maneuver and how to avoid. So I think that's just my background with regard to workplace politics. Thanks, 𝗵𝗂𝗍.
Joe, if I can ask a question on that, do you think that mentors and sponsors play a role in that? Maria has made a comment on here about that. And is that a role that people should be taking on in terms of helping mentees or helping younger graduates or whatever understand this better as they navigate themselves?
Yes, sponsors, mentors are very important, because especially when you're new in an organization, so that you can understand, and they can also explain this to you so that you can understand and also guide you. Mentors and sponsors will normally be people who are very senior in the organization. They will mostly understand the politics in the organization. They will have probably spent years with the organization. So they'll be able to guide you, and they'll be able to help you to understand what you need to do and what you not need to do. I think where workplace politics becomes bad, it's when there's a thin line between where there's workplace politics and where it's starting to move into an area of corruption itself.
Thank you so much, Joe. So a few things came up from three of our speakers, and I think it would lead us to actually talk about our next subtopic, which is emotional intelligence. 𝗵𝗂𝗍𝗔, you brought this up, and how did you use emotional intelligence to get ahead in the game?
I just want to latch on what Joe and Ziningi have shared about knowing which battles to fight, basically knowing when to step in and when to step out. So emotional intelligence is really, the foundation really starts with you understanding yourself, and you being able to know that you are in a space where you can bring your true self to the forefront. And when faced with certain situations, also knowing, how you will respond in those situations. So emotional intelligence is so important because we work with humans. Our operations, our companies are filled with humans. We have different backgrounds, we have different aspirations, and we also have different things that drive us to get things done, and also things that almost bring us together, different things that bring us together. So sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you're actually in a mess, but you don't realize that you are in a mess. But if you're emotionally intelligent, you'll be able to recognize that there's something in you that is being triggered, or the behavior of the other person is a certain way, and it will require a certain response from you. And I think emotional intelligence is really about awareness, both of yourself and also of the your workplace and the people that you're engaging with, and how then to respond, whether you will respond or not respond. I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Siningi. Mokhaledi, would you like to jump in? I see that you had a bit of a nod there as she was going through all her points.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot, and I just want to add on to emotional intelligence, starting with self-awareness. It's very important that you take time to get to know yourself, understand what are your values, are they aligned to the company you work for? Because the moment there's misalignment with your personal values and the values of the company you work for, that's where you will start, maybe being more on the hard receiving or hard end of the politics. I'm getting background. I think someone is on mute. Okay. Yeah. So the moment you have that misalignment between what you really stand for and believe in as an individual and what the company's values are, it becomes difficult. You start having internal battles around what's right and what are you supposed to be doing at work. And I just want to add in around the mentorship to say it's very crucial to understand the politics and not leave it there, but also participate. And I would like to share a personal experience with a mentor very early in my career, when he actually told me about the biases in the organization around, silly things like the school you went to. And he actually showed me how, a big majority of our leaders came from a particular school. And then they had a bias towards people from that particular school. And it's important to know and understand how then you show up and how you might be perceived and received by people who see you maybe as like them or different to them based on, for instance, in this case, the school that you went to. So it's important, as we are talking about, delivering without derailing, that you understand that it's not just about the output, but on how you also get to that based on what are the norms in the organization and what do people believe in around, what's the right way of doing business. Thanks.
I think Valencia had a question here about emotional intelligence. Valencia, I don't know if you want to maybe elaborate a little more while we're on the topic.
Hi, Raksha. Hi, everyone. No problem. When we were talking about this topic, I was just thinking about, just the word transparency came to mind, because I think something I've learned in the last couple of years is the importance of being open and transparent. Just a silly example, I remember when I was a graduate or an intern in my first year, I just joined the company, and I was writing exams, and I was so scared to tell my manager at the time that I was writing exams. So I came to work stressed out, and it was just horrible. And then I got involved in some of the politics, and it was just an awful experience. And now I think about being just open and transparent. And I think sometimes people are cautious about it because it can often lead to, little stories like, oh yeah, she's always on leave, or she's doing this, she's doing that. So I was just hoping maybe if the speakers wouldn't mind just elaborating perhaps a bit more on the importance of transparency, and I think how we can better manage that so that we can be, I think, more authentic in our roles, and I think also more confident in how we make decisions in the workplace.
Any takers for that one?
I'd like to give it a go. So I do agree with you, Valencia, that transparency is important. And being open is very important, but there's also boundaries, understanding where the organization's stance is around certain issues. So there's organizations that are definitely pro-education, and understanding that very early on is important. And there are organizations that are not pro-education or further study, or people taking time for certain things. The same is with, supervisors or managers. You need to understand what your manager's values are. Do they value education or not? And how do you approach conversations that may not be in line with what they truly or what they naturally align to, without finding yourself on the other side of politics. So, like you said, sometimes it leads to gossip, and you cannot address everything that's said about you in your absence. But it's important to be able to tactically address and, approach situations in a way that is intelligent, without coming across as wanting to, address every little thing that's said about you or what people think about you. And that's where the knowledge of self and understanding what your true values are and living them will come in for you to say, we know she's consistent in this area, or this is what she stands for, this is what she does. And you also understand what the organization and the people in your immediate circle believe in and support or do not support. I hope that adds on to the conversation. Thanks.
That helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I saw Abageng had her hand up.
I just wanted to add to what Mphahlele said about knowing the boundaries. When I did the introduction, I shared that I lost my sister, and normally when people are in a position of loss or when something unfortunate happens to them, there's different responses that you get from people you work with. In my case, I almost was perceived to be almost like a favorite child, where certain things appeared to others that I was getting favored over others who'd been through similar situations. But it's very important to also be familiar with your company's rules and policies and procedures about certain things, because sometimes not being aware of those things might create certain perceptions and might also lead to certain politics, but those things are there to create clarity and almost to give guidance on how to respond to, when someone needs to ask for leave, or when someone is going through a tough time and they need to step away from certain positions. Really, a lot of our organizations are quite mature in terms of documenting how to deal with certain situations. And if you are aware of that information, you can also assist in clarifying perceptions that are created by a certain treatment that you're getting, or a certain treatment that others might be feeling that other people are receiving. One of the big things about emotional intelligence is also being able to be empathetic, but to also be able to provide feedback and give people feedback on clearing up certain things that people are talking about, is you being able to share with them, the truth, and that truth being the truth with fact of what your organization has in place.
Thank you so much, Obakeng. Ziningi, I know you are dying to jump in there. That is right up your alley. Please give us some knowledge.
I think from the HR point of view, in responding to that, I wanted to say that the relationship that we have between an employer and employee is a relationship of trust. And it is important that as employees, we maintain the trust that the employer has when it comes to our relationship. And therefore, trust simply means there must be a level of honesty and a level of transparency in how we deal with matters relating to what has been raised now. And in terms of managing politics around that, I also wanted to talk about there are procedures and processes to be followed. Most organizations, they do have the procedure in terms of if one has to leave or if one has to go on a study leave or a sick leave or any other leave. What are the rules that have to compass those leaves? So for me, I just wanted to talk about there's a relationship that we have, employer-employee, and it's based on trust. And there are rules and regulations that needs to be followed. And to avoid, obviously, unnecessary talks or unnecessary gossip, then you have to follow the processes that are already established in the organization. But generally, as an employee, people, in terms of managing your politics, people must be clear on where they stand with you. So in other words, there must be a level of trust in terms of your conversation. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations with different people, but it is how, therefore, you send that message, or is how you package that message that you give, so that it's not a message that it's a message of mistrust, but it's a message of trust and transparency, but in a way that is not hurting to the other individual or to the other person. And that is a way of trying also to manage politics around, even your colleagues. Maybe your colleagues is doing something that is not good. How do you communicate that to your colleague? You need to find a way of communicating it, because you cannot just hold to it and not do nothing about it. Let's say your colleague is gossiping about someone else, because those are some of the dynamics that happens at work. You need to be able to say, no, do not do that, but in a nice, and truthful and honest way. Because once you entertain that, it's also, it's not good for the image of the company. And it's also not, it doesn't put you in a good position to manage your relationships quite well. That's what I wanted to say, Siphokazi.
Thank you so
Siphokazi, before you jump on, and Shane, I know you had your hand up as well, but I think we've had a couple of questions that probably tie into what Ziningi is talking about here as well, about authenticity and how do people show up as their authentic selves and, have this fear around, being who you are and then ending up, whether you're saying something politically incorrect or finding yourself in hot water. How then do you sort of sometimes navigate it? I think Maria mentioned something and Damo mentioned something as well. Ladies, if you're on here and you want to add to it, if you wouldn't mind. But yeah, what is your advice around that? How do you navigate being who you truly are, as well as now falling within the framework of what the company's boundaries are, I guess?
I think something that was mentioned by, I think it's 𝗪𝗪𝗠𝗦𝗪 or the other speaker. Self-awareness is very important. You need to know who you are, because that is your emotional EQ now, which is very important in navigating politics, because it's what you say and it's how it's received. It's managing your own relationships. If I have to say so about myself, I used to be a very hard person in terms of, if I need to correct you, I'm going to correct you very hard. But I have to self-reflect and say to myself, is that a good way? Because sometimes how you do things, people are not going to listen to the message itself. They are going to focus on how it was done, and they are going to retaliate not on the message, but on how it was sent to them. So it's therefore important to say, as much as I want to be authentic, I want to be true to myself and to the people, but how am I sending my message? The how part is very important. And it's important to be self-aware of the things that you do, either the things that are not putting you in an influential position, because once you start doing those things and start screaming and shouting at people, you know, it's not putting you in a good space in terms of positive influence and positive politic influence, if you have to put it in that way now, but it's also going to put you in a negative. So it brings about a negative connotation. So for me, I will say self-awareness, but most importantly, self-regulate. After you're aware, self-regulate. Ask yourself, now that I'm aware that I tend to shout sometimes when I correct, how therefore do I make sure that I don't do that next time? You know, so it's something that you need to think about. It's something that you yourself regulate, because no one else is going to control your emotions. You need to, at the end of the day, control your emotions. But you can never control something that you are not aware of. You can control only what you are aware of and what you know. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
That's great. Thank you very much. Mokaliari, I see you also had your hand up. And Shanae, I promise we're coming to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on this one to say, you know, as much as self-awareness is a big part, also understanding other people is equally important. So there's cultural differences that really, you know, have a big influence on how we behave as human beings. And for me as a village Pedi girl, one thing I've had to learn is how to talk to people who are from different cultural background. And I'll give an example. One of the extreme examples being when I speak to an elder in my culture, I don't look them in the eye. I have to look down and I don't talk back. But when I came into the workplace, that wouldn't work with an example, a white male, who when I speak without looking in the eye, I might be coming across as insincere or not authentic. And you need to be able to understand what are the differences and fundamental differences between me and other people, and how do we then bridge that gap to still build a healthy working relationship and manage the politics that might just come out based on misunderstanding of, you know, cultural norms and things like that. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you, Raksha.
Which then obviously goes to the bigger point as well, that communication becomes crucial and critical in all of this, right? Sibukazi, should we pick that up?
Definitely, Raksha, but I really would like to give Shanae a chance as well. And Joe, you've been quiet there. I know that you related a lot of this content. Feel free to jump in as well.
Thank you, 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗏. My question is actually to Joe. You were talking about in knowing the influential people in the organization and aligning with them. However, my question is, what is your advice on when I know an influential person, but I don't agree with their mannerism and leadership style? So do I still align with them? Yes, there are other influential people, but this guy is like a key influential person on the shaft, for instance. Or do I just stay under the radar because we'll get into a battle because we don't agree on the same things? So what's your advice on that?
Yes, Shanae, thanks for the question. I think, Shanae, what's important for you to understand is when you approach an influential person or a sponsor or mentors, what do you want to achieve? Individuals, we have our good sides, we have our bad sides or poor sides, bad. So you need to decide so this person might have a bad leadership style, but they might have a good ethic way. They might be good in what they do. They might be good in the technical aspect, and you probably just want the technical aspect that attracts those guys, and is very influential. So it's for you So I won't say stay away from the guy. It's say choose what you need to choose, but get to him. And if you need to also as a mentee, speak to him and tell him, sometimes you can advise your mentor, say, but I don't like X, Y, and Z about you. And that's the way, but don't stay away if you feel this guy is very influential and he can help you in your career development. That would be my advice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely use that advice.
And I'd like to just add there. I mean, if you think about there's two books that came to my mind as you asked that question. It's around 7 habits, habits of effective people. And one of them is seeking to understand and not always wanting to be understood. And it's important that you understand what makes this person influential and what is it about them that you really dislike, and reflect that on you. Sometimes people are just mirrors of things we actually are and we are not proud of. And when you see it in another person, it really doesn't, it triggers you. So it's important to always think about that and understand it very well. And another one is Nolita's book around boardroom dancing, where she speaks about wearing different shoes in the boardroom and understanding when to wear what. And sometimes she refers to maybe wearing running shoes instead of wearing heels. And it's important to understand that as people, we wear different shoes for different roles. And as Joe is saying, maybe all you want is the technical influence of this person, and that's all you have to learn from them. And you don't have to love everything about them. Thanks.
Yeah, I just think on that point, if I have to jump in, I think it's very important what you said now, and it also links to emotional intelligence. You need to know and you need to have that expertise and that emotional intelligence to separate what you perceive as a personal level and what's happening in the workplace. Most of the time, as individuals, we try to bring our personal aspect into the workplace, and you need to try as a professional or as a manager to try to separate the two, to make sure when you're in the workplace, you're professional with every individual that you interact with in the workplace. And I think that's very key to make sure that you can encourage the people on the workplace level.
Thank you so much for that. I do see your hand up, Ziningi, but Joe, you do have a follow-up question in the chat there. Zoom user says, how do you work on fixing your reputation when people's perception of you is not a good one? Sometimes it's not even about you being a terrible person, but you might be labeled as a problem child simply because you refuse to be bullied or accept things that don't align within, I'm assuming, your organization or within yourself. So you had mentioned earlier on when you told us your story that sometimes it's just you stepped on the wrong toes. It's not that you are being mean or malicious, but it's a corrupt system and it just doesn't go with your ethics. So how do you navigate on fixing your reputation after you have spoken up?
I think the most important thing is when one of the speakers talked about value. When your values and the values of the organizations are not aligned, that's going to be very key for you. So first of all, you need to determine what your values are. If you don't know your values, and when you talk about values is something that you're not willing to compromise. And if there's perceived corruption of this way of the organization has become culture within the organization, then and you don't agree with it, then it's time for you to move out. Coming to your question, where let's say you step in now, you have told them a piece of your mind, what you think about what's happening, and now you've stepped on some people's toes, and now you want to fix the relationship. That's where that emotional intelligence comes in. If the person is emotionally intelligent, they will understand that what you said to them was not personal, but was work-related. If they're not emotionally intelligent, they won't be able to separate the two. And I think for you, if you really value the relationship, it's probably for you to go back to the individual and say, what I said in the meeting was not a direct attack to you, but was just my opinion on the work, on the issue at hand, and don't take it as a personal attack on you as an individual. I think that's the best you can do. But otherwise, if you're not aligned, your values are not aligned with the organization, it's time for you to look for some other place.
Thank you so much, Joe. Ziningi, I know you had something to weigh in, and then 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, you can just also contribute after.
𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, and also just to add on this one, you know, sometimes yes, we can step on other people's toes and all that, but people will respect you for being authentic and for being truthful with them. Yes, it might not be at that time, you know, a good experience for you and the person. And sometimes you might say things out of line in terms of maybe your attitude and your behavior was not right, which you need to go back, and I agree with Joe, you need to go back and apologize. But if you stand on the truth and stand on the right principles, people will respect you for that, rather than bending, you know, every time or being taken by any other wind that comes. But if you stand on your principles, then people will obviously take you serious, and people will know where they stand with you and the kind of a person that you are. Never, ever, you know, what is it? Never forget who you are, and never lose your values at the end of the day, because your values are important. You cannot want to change them for the sake of winning the people or winning the relationship. Never change who you are because you want to win the relationship. Yes, change how you do certain things, especially when you have realized emotionally that there's certain things that you're not doing right. But in terms of principles, I mean, really never change. What I also wanted to say earlier, 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, was about when the question about mentor or the person that is difficult. It's important that when you identify people to build relationship, because remember, politics is about managing the relationships. When you have to now map, you need to map the people. You need to sit down and map who are in my relationships and who do I want in my relationships, and why do I want those people as part of me. You need to, there are three things that you must look at. You look at the breadth. In other words, how diverse are the people in my network? Do I only have engineers if I'm an engineer? Do I only have HR if I'm an HR person? Do I only have accountants or finance channel people? Or do I have a diverse number of people? I mean, it's always good to have diverse, to have your HR, other departments. Go across your own department. Don't only have relationships within your own department. Secondly, look at the depth. How close are your people to the networks? The closeness, how close are you to the people in the networks? Your closeness. There are people that you will have interaction with on a monthly basis. There are people you will have interaction with on a quarterly basis. There are different people because each and everyone has got a different a place to play in your life. But also remember, you are building genuine relationships. Don't build, you know, manipulative relationships for the sake of me getting something. It's about being genuine in your, and people will tell when you are genuine. When you sit down with the person, they will tell you that they will hear that this person is genuine or that person is not. So don't play with people's feelings in an effort of saying, I want to be politically correct. If you are genuine, be genuine. And if you want to build a relationship, build a relationship. So how close are you to the people in your network is also important. And it's fine. I mean, if there are people that you talk to after 3 months, it's okay. You know, there are people in my relationships that I talk to after 3 months or after 6 months, and they don't have an issue because that's the relationship that I have with them. But there are those people on daily basis that I would touch base with them, on monthly basis that I would touch base with them, because it's important for me to have that relationship with them. Lastly, how many people in your network know each other? So density It's very important. So I've spoken about breadth, depth, and density. It's important to say how many people know each other. Now, coming to the question of Chanel, you might find that, yes, you are not close to this influential person, but there is someone who is close to that influential person who is also close to you. So that person becomes a bridge between you and this influential person. So it's important that we map our relationships and know who is who in our relationships. That's all I wanted to say, 𝗪𝗠𝗂𝗧. Thank you.
That was both wide and dense and deep. Thank you so much, Ziningi. I really took notes. That was amazing. 𝗪𝗂𝗍𝗃, I know you wanted to add as well.
No, I see some interesting questions coming up in the chat, so I'll give them an opportunity. I think Ziningi stole a lot of my thunder, but that is really close to what I wanted to share.
Please jump on the comments, 𝗪𝗂𝗃. If there's something specifically you want to tackle, please go for it. Because we've got a lot of great interaction going on here. I think one more on authentic self, maybe before you move on. I think there's a question here about how do you speak up and share your ideas, especially in things that you have knowledge on without having fear or anxiety?
Okay, let me respond to that one. I think I had the same challenge when I started my career, where I perceived, people that have been in roles for a certain time, or that are in senior positions, or that are perceived to be subject matter experts. I wouldn't want to voice my opinion in their presence because I would feel that I might say something incorrect, or I might come across as dumb. But one of the things about being given an opportunity to, sit in the table or get into the room is to also make sure your voice is heard. Fear is quite crippling. So you need to understand that your presence alone is not enough for people to see your authentic self or to see who you are. You need to be brave enough to also put your hand up and comment and contribute and participate. And it's in that contribution and participation where it starts to become normal, where you start getting feedback of how you can improve, or you start getting feedback from people to say, wow, I'm glad you said something. I didn't think about that. My current general manager likes to share that there's strength in diversity of thought. And sometimes you speaking up bring that diversity that no one else in the room is thinking about. So don't allow that opportunity to be missed by being afraid to say something. You just have to really put on your big girl pants and just say something. You'll never regret saying something. Can always learn from it. Thanks.
I see Joe has something to say. Thank you so much, 𝗪𝗂𝗃.
Yes, I think just to chip in on the issue of fear, I think through my career, fear is mostly caused by lack of information, lack of knowledge, or not understanding the subject. And I think it's very important when you go to a meeting, whoever asks the question, that you prepare yourself well, especially on the subject that's going to be discussed, and make sure you have the right information. Once you walk into a meeting situation and your confidence level is high, the anxiety will go ahead. Most of the time, what causes us to be fearful or afraid to speak is a lack of knowledge and lack of not being prepared going to meetings.
Nice one,
Thanks.
Joe. Sorry, I'm going through the chats, and Olinda, I hear that you had quite a detailed question. Would you like to come through and just ask your question, please?
Hi, everybody. I was not prepared to ask the question since I asked it in the chat, but let me take what the previous speakers have been saying, get over the fear of speaking. So my question is centered from, I'm coming from working under someone and now I'm in a managerial position. And it's that thing of, I'm now starting to understand that the environment is very different in terms of working under someone versus having people working under you. So my question was centered firstly around how do I ensure that my mentees are given the best side of me in terms of when they're looking at how I deal with the office politics, how I interact with them, that they're seeing the best side, my authentic side, but they're also not necessarily getting the bits that are bad. Because I've noticed with my managerial style, I tend to be I withdraw a lot. So if there's situations that need me to be confrontational or to sit down someone and say 1, 2, 3, I tend to withdraw and back a bit before I actually confront it. And I personally think it's bad, but I also think that's how I deal with things, because I first need to introspect what's happening, how I'm gonna go about it and so forth. So I don't know. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then the second thing, like I'm saying, because of my personality and because of this withdrawalness, I'm noticing that amongst my senior peers, there seems to be a lack of communication. Now I know I should be throwing my hat in the ring and trying my utmost best in terms of communication resolution, but at the same time, I'm also getting this kind of spirit of, not my monkey, not my circus. Let me just stay out of it type of thing. I know it's bad, but it's that thing of let me stay out of it. Maybe I'll say the wrong thing. Maybe my employer will get offended if I say 1, 2, 3. So let me just stay out. But now I see it's directly impacting me, and it's also impacting how I produce my work.
Thank you so much, Alinda. I see Mokgaledi is raving for this. Mokgaledi, would you like to share, please?
Yeah, I think Luke's deceiving on this one. Mphokazi, it's quite complex. So I didn't get the name of the lady who was talking, but I can empathize in a big way. And there's a few things I'd like to just comment on, and I'm keen to hear what my other panelists are gonna say about it. But I think burying your hand in the sand is definitely not the way to go. When you are in the arena as a leader, you do have to speak. And sometimes you don't speak for yourself, but you speak on behalf of the people you are leading. And again, you need to be kind to yourself. So you are not going to be everything to your mentees and your subordinates. Choose what it is that is, your best foot, and always put that one forward, and they will learn. If you are authentic, like my fellow panelists were saying, your mentees will know that, you know what, she's great at this, and this is the best side we'll get. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose on what people get of us, so they get as who we come as. So they are going to obviously know that you are good at this thing or not good at that thing. And the things that you've already accepted that you are not great at, fall in love with yourself authentically. That's who you are, but work on the things that you know you can do better at, or things that are unfortunately impeding you from being a better leader. But always understanding that you are not, even as parents, you're not everything to your kids. And in the work environment, you can only be, if you are a mentor, you can mentor people in, what you are better, you are best at, and not everything. So don't, be too hard on yourself that you are not a perfect leader. I don't think there is such. You need to just be mindful of the things and maybe openly talk about them, to say, guys, I struggle with this, because sometimes mentorship, as a mentor, you always think you must be giving, and you don't open yourself to receiving from your mentees. And you might find that they actually don't care much about the things that you are not great at. But when it comes to being with your peers and things that are preventing you from speaking up, you need to be able to break out of those things as that are definitely barriers. So not speaking up and withdrawing might not be the way to go when you want to continue having influence and speaking and ensuring that your people are taken care of as a leader. Thanks, Mphokazi. You are mute, Mphokazi.
Thank you, Mokgaledi. Joa, your hand is up.
Yes, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂, just to respond on the ladies who asked the question. I think what's important as a manager is to develop trust with your subordinates. And I think the building blocks of trust, I'm going to be very short, is that as my fellow speakers, panel said, you need to be authentic to your subordinates. You need to be caring and genuine to them. And other thing, you need to be believable. You need to act with integrity. You need to show them your integrity. And I think the other thing, you need to be capable. You need to show competence in what you're doing. And sometimes to show competency, it could be that to telling your subordinates that, no, I don't know. That means you know your competency, and that makes you competent. And I think the last thing that I want to add is that you need to be dependable. Once your subordinates ask you something or ask for information, most of the time we promise and we never come back. You say, okay, fine, I'll find out. And then 2 weeks later, you've been asked the same question. You need to be dependable. And I think once you've built on those four and you've developed the trust, you should be easier for you to navigate with your subordinates. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Zinigi, we have one for you in the chats. Theodosia says, how do you deal with an unprofessional superior? For example, someone who doesn't, sorry, I lost the chat.
Someone who doesn't handle sensitive cases
with confidentiality.
Wow, that's a difficult one. Because now this is your superior, this is your manager who's supposed to handle sensitive information. I think in that case, it's you need now to be authentically you. In other words, you need to be honest with the manager. Remember, it's not only us learning from our managers, but it's also our managers learning from us. So it's a two-way relationship. So in this case, you need to be able to go to your manager and nicely say, this is what I don't appreciate, but in a very nice way, because that is now borderline confidentiality that is between an employer and an employee, or an individual with, that particular individual. It's important for you to be confident enough to approach your supervisor and to let him know or let her know that they violated your confidentiality. And for me, that's the best way to handle it, because as soon as you go and discuss it with someone else, now it becomes gossip, it becomes other issues. But as soon as you directly discuss with the person, then it's between the two of you. Remember, you are both learning from each other. So the approach is that we are correcting each other here. And I think there is something that has happened, and I don't think it's the right thing. How about we fix it and talk about it? So that should be the approach. But keeping quiet, it's not going to work. Talking to someone else, it's going to make things worse. It's like you are now talking about the boss, gossiping about the boss, which is also not good.
Thank you so much, Zinigi, and great points were made there. I'd like to I see that a lot of the questions with emotional intelligence and navigating politics have been answered in the chat. And I don't want us to pass out on the opportunity to speak to people who moved from a technical space to a strategic role. So I'd like us to discuss our subtopic of how did the three technicians, actually everyone here was technical at some point, move from a technical role to a business-wide role, like being a manager, a superintendent, a section manager. Would anyone like to take it on in the panel?
So if I were to...
You can go, Mokgaledi. It's okay.
Thanks, 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗂𝗪. So reflecting on my transition from being a technical person to being a manager, I had to start learning about people more and understanding the significant differences between being a manager and a leader. And for me, so far, the biggest difference is around managing systems as a manager and leading people. So I believe people are led and systems and procedures are part of management. So being able to understand that from a technical background, I can do 1, 2, 3, but from a leadership background, I need to be able to speak to people. I need to be able to communicate. I need to be able to express myself when I'm, happy with things and when I'm not happy, and be able to do that in a way that's building of relationships and not breaking. To be able to confront issues and not bury my hand in the sand and shy away from addressing issues that are impacting my leadership or my team. So starting to think about my role in an organization and how I contribute value, as opposed to just delivering on a KPI as a technical person, was one of the ways I've transitioned. And also, one of my initial, valuable lessons from my mentorship was understanding that I'm not going to be an expert in everything. So I'm a mining engineer who's been in different roles, and technically things change, and I will not live long enough to know everything to become the best mining engineer ever. So as a leader, my job is to ensure that I nurture and create an environment where people who know the technical work are able to do their work, and create that environment where they can work in a team and still deliver to the business objectives. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
𝗪𝗏𝗠𝗦.
I wanted to start with saying I'm still on the journey. It's a journey of constant learning. For me, I'm a geologist, and one of the first lessons I got was actually moving from a technical role to leading a team, and also coming to the same realization. It's not about me knowing all the answers. It's how do I equip my team to be set up for success every single day so that they can deliver on what they need to deliver on that particular KPI. So it's really about understanding people, learning people, but also knowing what your people need to be able to perform. But it's also about managing stakeholders and having challenging or difficult conversations when things are not going the right way. One of the things I've intentionally done now is to also learn, educate myself around what is strategic thinking, and I'm pursuing that as a master's qualification, so that I align my thinking exactly to that. So it's a constant journey of learning. It's completely different to being technical. There is some learning that needs to happen.
Thanks, 𝗪𝗏𝗠𝗦. Joe, could you care to jump in?
Yeah, I think just to chip in what 𝗪𝗏𝗠𝗦 said, I think she didn't say it out loudly enough, but you need to equip yourself, you need to learn. You need to do managerial courses, you need to do leadership courses to understand the difference to operate at the operational level, technical level, and at the strategic level. And I think the key, what I took from 𝗪𝗏𝗠𝗦 was that you need to understand it's no longer just about you, and you have a team to lead. And I think even if you operate at the technical level or you in between transitioning, it's very important for you also to see the bigger picture of the organization, to understand and to understand what the vision of the organization is, what's the mission, what's the purpose, and what's your role in the organization as a whole. I think even if you're technical and your role from bottom up, you'll be able to move easily from being a technical person to becoming a strategic person. We need to understand that businesses are there to make money, and that's it.
So Joe, when you speak about understanding your role or your impact within the business, how do you go about that?
If you're technical, let's say for instance you're a mining engineer, you're at a phase, you need to engage with your manager to understand. So you need to be inquisitive. You understand why are we doing certain things, and why we're not doing certain things. And then you'll understand. And if you have a good manager, they'll be able to take you with. So being inquisitive, ask the right questions, they'll be able to take you through the whole process for you to understand what the final output is and why, as I said before, organizations are there to make profits for the communities we operate in and for the employees and for the shareholders and stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ziningi, you're pretty quiet over there. Do you have anything to add, please, on understanding the impact that you have on the business that you're working for?
It's important, because remember now, that is the value that you add as a person in the business. And understanding that value simply means understanding your KPIs, understanding what is it that you have to deliver on, and understanding your KPI, also understanding your areas of development, because sometimes we set KPIs, but there are areas of development. And I think the previous speakers have spoken about, transitioning from a technical role to a managerial role. You need obviously skills that are going to help you to be a better manager and to be a better leader at the end of the day. So understanding your value, but also in understanding your value, it's understanding the expectations of your stakeholders. Remember, when you are managing politics and you're managing, you are managing politics and you're managing your people, you need to understand the expectations of your stakeholders. What are your stakeholders expecting from you? Now, in other words, your stakeholders can be your own manager, can be the business as a whole. You need to understand that. And whatever that you do it bearing in mind what is it that is required of you. That's how you gain your influence. Because if you are doing something that the business is not focusing on and is not driving, then you are counterproductive. Really, you are not adding value. So you understand your stakeholders, you do what you know to be the best for the business and for your own stakeholders. And in this case, your stakeholders is your managers, is the business as the whole. So for me, that is important. And that's how you also gain your power. If you deliver on what is expected, then you gain power. Because remember, managing politics, it's not only about having good relationships and having good people and having people that will vouch for you in boardrooms, but it's also producing something. It's about your own performance. So your own performance and your own relationships will take you to places, because you are able to manage relationships, which is now your personal power, which is your attitude, your skills, but you're also able to produce, to perform. You are aligned to the business and to the vision of the business. Thank you. Thank you, Spokazi.
Wow, my panelists today have imparted powerful words, and I hope that everyone here will take them with, and I hope that somehow you find a way to use everything that you have been told today to change all of your derails into delays. It doesn't always have to be that you totally derailed from your career. Maybe it's just a U-turn. Maybe it's just a bypass. We are unfortunately running out of time. In closing, can we hear a few closing statements from the panelists, please? Mokgaledi, would you like to go, please?
For me, is to say thank you, Spokazi and Raksha, for facilitating the discussion. I learned a lot, and thank you so much to my fellow panelists and the attendees. I think most of the questions were very open and intriguing, and you also understand that there's so much more that one can still learn. And for me, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mokgaledi. We really appreciate your input today. Ziningi?
Thank you, Spokazi. This was really a wonderful session. I just want to leave you with this, there are three sources of power. There is positional power, which is the title. There is personal power, which is the skills, the expertise, the abilities, and the attitudes. And that's where your EQ is. And it's important for you to grow your own personal power, because that lies and depends with you. And there's also relational power, which I think we've spent most of the time talking about building relationships with relevant stakeholders. And the stakeholders doesn't only have to be managers. Remember, stakeholders can also be your colleagues. Stakeholders can also be, the people under you. You can learn something from someone who is in a low level. You can learn something from someone who's in the middle level and even in the management level. So it's all about the attitude that you have to learning in all different areas. This was a wonderful session. Thank you very much, 𝗪𝗂𝗫. And thanks to the panelists, I've also learned a lot.
Thank you so much, Ziningi. Obake?
Thank you. I think I'm grateful and would like to thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about my journey that I'm currently on. I think I would just like to share with everyone in the room. Do not. They say I think it's do not despise the small beginnings. My saying is a bit off, but really, wherever you are, invest in understanding self and in understanding your environment and in understanding others, because as you move up the career, that is the one thing that doesn't change. You will constantly need to work on self, to understand others and get the best out of others. So don't miss that opportunity to learn from your colleagues, from your stakeholders, from anyone you interact with. And also don't be afraid to be vulnerable and ask for help and support and guidance, because there are a lot more people in our organizations that are willing to give you that than those that are not. So those will be my last statement. And thank you, everyone.
You guys just continue giving us knowledge bombs today. Joe, would you like to say anything in closing?
Yes, because I think I was just going to say thank you. I think it was a great session. We learned a lot from the fellow panelists. I think the questions were also great. I think we need to accept that politics will always be part of our workplace. It's for us to equip ourselves with the right skills, the right emotions to deal with this politics. And other things also to make sure that you have a mentor, make sure that you align yourself with influential people. And I think one of the panelists mentioned it was very powerful. It doesn't mean the most influential people in an organization. There might be close to that person that you can align yourself with also. So you need to know the map of the people within the organization. So I think in closing for me, I would say just you need to do the right things. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose your values. Don't lose your beliefs. You need to be seen, be present, play a role, be active. Make sure you have the knowledge, you have the skills. And lastly, I also say, be believable. When you do something, make sure you are believable. Thank you.
I'm really, really thankful to the panelists today and the attendees for giving us your time and for listening to me with my flu voice today. I really, really appreciate your questions and for engaging in this session. Raksha, would you like to say anything in closing?
Yeah, thank you so much to all our panelists. I think this was such an incredibly insightful session. We could have probably gone on for a while longer as well. And I think that this conversation is probably going to continue in a couple different platforms. And thank you so much for making time to be part of this. I think we all need to give a round of applause to 𝗪𝗂𝗫, who is one of our mentors in our mentorship program, for facilitating a fantastic session. So 𝗪𝗂𝗫, well done to you. Really, really great job. And thank you so much, everybody. Like it was really great. We'll share this, the recording to this on social media as well. And I would encourage you to share it with friends and colleagues, because I think there's so much that so many people can learn from off this. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate it. 𝗪𝗂𝗫, up to you.
Thank you so much again. I cannot thank you guys enough. We will share, as Raksha mentioned, on social media. If you guys can, you can find us on LinkedIn. All of our panelists are on LinkedIn, myself included. Please follow us on there, chat, ask us questions, engage there. But from us tonight, we really have to say good night and thank you so much for your ears and your time.